Awesome. Well, good morning, everyone. Myself and Nelson, we are going to be going through a guide to building and measuring onboarding programs for you all. But first off, we kind of wanted to get a good gauge of the room. How many of you all actually work in onboarding or some aspect of it?
All right, there's my people.
Yes, love it. Well, before we actually jump in, myself and Nelson, we have a fun icebreaker question for you all. Something we do at Atlassian for our new hires on day one is a nice little question that isn't the same old of, oh, tell us a fun fact about yourself. So you're going to go into your tables right now, and you're going to talk about what your walkout song is going to be. Pretend you are going into the office for the first time ever. Elevator doors are opening. What song is playing over the speakers that it's going to get you hyped for day one? So we'll do that for like 30 seconds at your tables now. And we'll come back and we'll talk about ours. Good kickoff.
I didn't even think about mine.
I know. I honestly. And let's go ahead and get started then. So we'll kick things off with Nelson.
All right, everyone.
Oh, where we're going. People are excited. Yeah. All right. I know. Oh, no.
All right, so I'll share
Nelson.
my walk-up song now. Let's go ahead and bring the volume back a little bit.
Yeah, let's go.
I want to hear yours, too. I'll share mine. So mine is, I think it's 7 Nation Army. I forget the artist, but it's a great walk-up song. It's got a good beat to it. Gets the people going in the morning.
Yes.
Marco, what about you?
For me, my walkout song, in case if you know me, I'm a big Swiftie. No secret there. So mine would be New Romantics. That when that beat hits at the second chorus, you know what I'm talking about if you heard the song. If not, go listen to it. That song would definitely be my walkout song. All right, so let's go ahead and kick things off here. Couple of intros for us here. Like I was introduced, my name is Marco. I focus on sales onboarding, events, and comms at Atlassian. If you don't know what Atlassian is, I know different name. You've probably heard of our products, Jira, Confluence, Trello. Yeah, I see all the heads shaking after that one. I've been with Atlassian for 5.5 years and have been across 3 different roles. I have been an IC focusing on renewals and billing and licensing. Now I focus on sales onboarding, and that is across the whole globe. It's not just in AMER, which is pretty intense to think about. As you can see, our year in review, we've had over 135 new hires across our sales org onboarded globally, and that is just up to date. We are expecting to probably hit around 175 before the actual financial year ends, which is really exciting.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. Nelson?
All right, I'll take it over now. So sales onboarding lead at Databricks since March of last year. Fun fact, I actually accepted my offer at Databricks at this conference last February, and so that was a really exciting moment. I got to soak up everything from Marco, who presented last year, from a lot of the other great speakers as well. Prior to Databricks, I was at IBM for 7 years, focusing on product enablement for the data and AI space, SKO execution and planning, which who has already completed an SKO or will by the end of this month? All right. You know the pain and probably the craziness that has happened in the few months leading up to that. And then just for a year in review, we have doubled our sales force in the last year. Hundreds of people came on board, and so as onboarding, we've been super busy with over 20 virtual classes that we've completed. We started to pivot back to in-person. We had 9 face-to-face classes at our headquarters in San Francisco as well. So Marco and I have both been busy. I'm sure for those of you in onboarding as well, you stayed super busy as well this past year. All right, so here's our agenda for the next 35, 40 minutes or so. We want to leave time for questions at the end. Marco and I are going to discuss a tale of 2 different onboarding programs. So I'll preview what we do at Databricks, he'll preview what he does at Atlassian, and then we'll talk through kind of 3 key categories to building, executing, and measuring effective onboarding programs. We were very light on slides, and that's intentional because we want to keep this conversational, but we'll talk through these 3 categories and then have time for questions at the end. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what we do at Databricks. I think the best part about conferences like these is that you get to see what others are doing in the space. You might be able to learn some insights from that, take something that you're able to develop and implement in your own companies. So let me walk through what we do at Databricks today. We separate our onboarding program into 3 distinct stages. So the first is pre-work. This starts at day 1 when a new hire joins a company. They're automatically assigned e-learning within our LMS, and this takes them through the first 15 to 30 days. This pre-work is something that covers topics from foundations to what we sell our products, how we sell our sales methodology, how we do discovery, think early sales stage type topics. And then, of course, do their job, what sales tools that they're doing, how do they work with internal teams at the company so they're set up for success right out of the gate. And that takes us through the first 15 to 30 days. And then secondly, they go into what we call our marquee product as onboarding, which is our sales bootcamp. This is a face-to-face class. It's about 4.5 days, and we bring everyone into the same room from across the globe. And we cover topics and kind of pull through what they learned in pre-work into the classroom and double down on that. So rather than just lecture and listening to a presenter, they're actually activating on some of those skills. So they're getting to apply, analyze, practice, and be able to do some different competitions and certifications during that program. After bootcamp, they go on to tactical training afterwards. And so that'll take them through about a 60-day process. And this is a virtual, think Zoom, instructor-led training class where we cover more advanced topics after they've left bootcamp. And we have assessment points along the entire journey. Something we didn't do as great of a job at last year, but we're really looking forward to measuring the success and the journey for our new hires. So before they even start their pre-work, the first step they do is take an intake exam to be able just to understand, we want to understand as sales enablement where they're currently at, because we have a wide talent spectrum that we hire from. So we want to make sure we understand where this new hire is at from day one and provide additional resources if we think that they need it. Before they get to the boot camp, they have to pass the entry exam, which is their ticket into the class. So we want them to make sure we've really taught them effectively the knowledge that will help them within the boot camp. And then to leave the boot camp, they're actually completing an exit exam. That's their ticket out of boot camp. We also have pitch certifications, discovery role plays, so we're really making sure they know their stuff at the end of this program. And then we package all that up together and ship it off to their manager as a report card, so the manager knows how their individual new hire has done at the end of this program and what might be best next steps afterwards. Marco?
Cool. So the great thing that Nelson and I learned about our onboarding programs is how different they are. For us at Atlassian, we have remote first in mind. As a global organization, it's very hard for us, especially during the times of COVID and post-COVID, to be bringing people in from our main areas of like Manila, Australia, just for onboarding over the course of a certain period. So for us, it's very much keeping remote first in mind. So if y'all were here last year, y'all will remember I went over our newly branded onboarding program that we called Formula A that was focused on different tracks for different roles, because we have so many roles focusing on so many different solutions at Atlassian. So they have to do so many laps across the track in order to get through onboarding. So this is about for our core curriculum. We have about 3 or 4 other tracks as well, but for our lap 1, it's assimilating to the Atlassian culture. The last thing we want is to turn on, like we always hear, the fire hose and just start throwing information at them right away. So it's very much making sure they understand the organization they're joining, the values that they're going to be experiencing, and really get to know the people they'll be working with during their time at Atlassian. Then they focus on our sales methodology, really setting that foundation of this is how we at Atlassian should be thinking about when you are talking to a customer. Then they do go through a cloud boot camp. That cloud boot camp is an everyday session where it's at least 1 to 2 hours where they learn about our deployments, our products, and get an intro into what the certification in order to get through onboarding will entail. Then cloud migrations and objection handling. Again, this is for our core teams here. So those are going to be 2 really big things. Cloud certification rehearsal. We're not going to have them just take a test on our side. It very much is we want them to go out and practice what they're going to be talking about. In order for them to actually get to the cloud certification point, they have to do 2 practice runs. And in order to get to that cloud cert, they have to tell us who they practiced with as well. So this is just a quick overview here. We have 2 more additional laps that you won't see here, but those are more advanced trainings like account research exercise, more them showing us what they had learned and then giving them tips and tricks on how to coach even further.
Awesome, thanks Marco. So now we're going to talk about building an onboarding program, and before we do that, I think we actually have one more icebreaker question for the class.
Yes, we have another question for y'all. We'll give you all 2 minutes, and I'm going to be strict on these 2 minutes this time, y'all. So my question to you all, go into your tables. How have you made your enablement program simple in the last year? So 2 minutes. Go for it. All right, let's bring it back, y'all. Dropping the hammer this time. I saw a lot of engagement, which is very great to see. We love to see it when we are definitely in those onboarding sessions, right? I saw a lot of talking happening at this table. Does anyone want to give an example?
A lot of us are in build phase.
Okay.
So we're actually thrilled to be at this conference, right? Because we're in the phase where we're noticing that onboarding, right, has historically been a lot of individuals creating their own. And so we're here to really
Love it.
be able to lead and move forward with how and the plan.
Great. Awesome.
Love that.
We're lacking a lot.
I love it. I love it. Gonna go to the table in the back over there. Don't think I'm not gonna call on you all. How about you all? What'd you all talk about? How'd you make your enablement program simple?
I think we talked about consolidating to a tool.
Love it.
I think a lot of us maybe had content in lots of different places, and even though maybe putting it in a tool sounds a little bit more complex, it was simplifying it into one source where they could get their information.
Love it. Awesome. Both really great answers. Really appreciate you all humbling me on that. Well, whatever you did to build that program to make it simple or made it a little more simple, there were 4 things you probably had to do, right? Or 3 things you had to do to make things simple, right? You had to know your audience. For us at Atlassian, we have many different sales roles that Enablement looks over. So making sure whatever you are creating is going to cater to that audience right there, right? Awesome.
Yeah, and I would add on top of that, knowing your audience. So at Databricks, last year we covered the initial onboarding phase for not only just sales and our account executives, but also the solutions architects and more technical sales roles, customer success. We had a wide group of people that we were covering. What we started to do at the end of last year and for this year, we're actually focusing just on the account executives only, so we can get really specific with their onboarding and the content they're getting, so they can come out of the gate and have an even faster start. And then a different team will handle onboarding for the technical personas. But you have to know your audience and make sure you're building towards that. It's much easier, I would say it's much harder if you're trying to cast a wide net, because then you can't get as specific as you'd probably like to, and as your new hires probably want to have within the program as well.
Next up, knowing your stakeholders. It's very easy for us, if you have held an IC role, to say, oh, I know what they are going to need because I did it at one time. Things change, and we've very much learned that onboarding is constantly changing. New acquisitions are happening, new go-to-market strategies are being built out. So making sure when those things are being talked about, you have someone in the room to relay that back to your onboarding program, right? Being sure that you're meeting with your stakeholders, that you're understanding what they're talking about, so you can see, okay, do we need enablement for this? And that's going to be a very big question you're gonna wanna ask your stakeholders when they come to you. Hey, I need you to build this out. Do you really need it, or is this something that can be coached up on by a manager?
Absolutely. I think the key word I would say here is it's all about alignment, aligning up above to your stakeholders, what the company's priorities are, what your go-to-market vision is for that particular year, and also understanding what your new hires need as well. So making sure those are matched up well so that you can build something that they're going to get value out of, and your executives are also very pleased about as well.
Yep. And last but not least, trying to make things simple here, collect feedback from the groups that you are talking to. At Atlassian, like we do remote first, at the end of every Zoom call during an onboarding session, it's, do you feel this is going to be applicable to your role? And do you feel like you understand the content? Getting that feedback is important, because I've been with Atlassian 5.5 years now. I understand the content. This is someone that's been in the Zoom room for 3 weeks. Are they actually understanding, absorbing the content there? So at Atlassian, really big on getting feedback from all parties.
One way we collect feedback at Databricks is not only from the new hires as they progress throughout the program, but also we interview the sales managers. We do a kind of cast a wide survey to get feedback on specific programs, what they think their new hires need, how they feel the program has been going. And then additionally, we do one-on-one interviews with them to see what is needed throughout the business. We have not only enterprise, mid-market, commercial, digital natives, but we also have verticalized sellers as well, so they're a part of different industries. And these managers, these teams need different things within the onboarding program, and so we try to make sure we're collecting feedback from each of these teams so that we can incorporate the best possible plan for onboarding and casting that somewhat of a wide net, but try to make it a little bit more narrow in scope as we go about that. But I think the key here is really just to make things simple at the end of the day.
Agree. My favorite word is automation. If you can automate it, do it, please, please. Going through this for 2 years, doing everything manually is just not possible. So automation, make it happen.
Someone said preach. I love that. I want to hear the story later.
Yes, same.
All right, let's move on to the second category we wanted to talk about, which is all around execution. And we have one more icebreaker question for you all. So what are some roadblocks you have encountered when building an enablement program?
Any enablement program, doesn't have to be onboarding.
Exactly. We'll take 2 more minutes. What are roadblocks you've encountered when building an enablement program?
Alrighty.
All right, let's go ahead and bring it back. We will be looking for one other volunteer to share.
All right, dialing it back. Let's go. Dropping the hammer. No.
Hammer's drop.
Hammer
We'll bring
drop,
it back,
mic drop.
everyone.
Cool.
I want to hear from, let's do the table up here at the front. You guys are already back looking at me. What is a roadblock that you've encountered in building an enablement program?
One of the big roadblocks that our table said was that we find that the whole world doesn't yet know what sales enablement is.
Hold on, can anyone else relate to that? Yeah, a lot of us.
There is no role called sales enablement historically, and so when we come along, it's like, is this sales ops, is this HR, what is this thing? Is it sales training? So that's been a cultural issue in the world's big place.
Explaining that to my mom has been a very interesting story every Christmas. I feel that. Yes. So it was when people not understanding exactly what sales enablement is. International.
Especially international, yeah.
Cool.
All right, what about from the back table just in front of the tech booth?
For us, it's really about finding a way to systematize finding data rather than memorization. That's just not going to work. It's never ending. So really focusing on having a one true source that has a ton of micro content, and also making it part of the salesperson's job to consistently feed into that, since 90% of the anecdotes and information reside in their head and oftentimes somehow just stay there.
Yeah, I can relate to that one too. So you said finding data and then pulling some of the knowledge out of different individuals or SMEs' heads so that you can then enable the rest of the field on that? Yeah, that's a big one. All right, so let's talk a little bit about execution now of your onboarding program. You have it built, hopefully it's simple. How do you execute it? I like to think of enablement, and particularly onboarding, as a product. Our clients are the new hires that are coming into our company. And so for Databricks, our bootcamp, our face-to-face class is our marquee product that we want to set the right experience, have fun during it, but also make sure they're hitting some key goals and enjoying the process along the way. So one way that we do that is by building onboarding champions. Just like in the selling motion, we want to have people that are internally almost selling on our behalf and are aligned to what the onboarding vision is, that really know the strategic vision of the company and are working with us as stakeholders, but also helping to evangelize what we're doing within onboarding and providing feedback and guidance along the way as well.
Yeah, so same here with the build your onboarding or finding your onboarding champions. When I started at Atlassian, we were a team of 7. Now we're at a team of over 30, I think it is, Jackie, right? Around 30-ish. We're around 30 now in sales enablement across the org. And that is because we had people saying what great material we're able to provide their sellers and coach them on. It wasn't just giving them material, it was showing them how to utilize that material in their day-to-day lives. Next up, finding the right SMEs. I in no way will fully understand what Jira software does, and that is just the way things are. The great thing about Atlassian is the open culture that we have to reach out to SMEs so they can come in and talk about the product so our teams understand exactly what our products do and how they can sell them to the customer. So while it's very easy to say, we need to build this out, we need to build this out, it's significantly easier and simpler to look outward and see if anything actually exists to begin with, and how can you bring that into onboarding, and then the most you would have to do from there is how would a salesperson need to take this in?
Definitely. What I'll add to that is sometimes the right SME, the person that knows the most about your product or perhaps a particular tool, they might not be the best presenter to speak to your AEs. Can anyone else, can I get like an amen for that? Yeah, you can relate to that.
Bless
and
up.
so the challenge that we have is finding the person that has the right knowledge to teach new hires at a level they understand, but also that's applicable for their role. So we can bring in a product specialist and they'll just spew everything about a product, but what is the AE actually going to retain from that? Probably not very much. And so we have to coach them or work with our onboarding champions, stakeholders to find the right individual that has the the field experience and can relate to what our AEs are doing, but also can teach them about the product, sales methodologies, things like that. And so that's always a challenge to find the right balance between the SME, but also the person who would be best for presenting. And there's differences between virtual and face-to-face as well. Someone can be a great presenter in a Zoom room, but if you bring them on stage, there might be a little bit of a difference you can notice in how they present and their comfortability with that.
Yeah, next up, considering scale, and I'm going to lump in standardized process as well. For us at Atlassian, it was great when I came in, my job was to build the onboarding program. We had no existing onboarding program originally, and as we continued to hire more and more, and having over 50 people I was overseeing over the course of 2 months and certifying all of them, it was not scalable in any way, shape, or form. So you need to find out when you're building, okay, is this going to be something that will be able to pull in 10 people in and also 50 people in? It's very important. And by doing that, you can standardize a process. I now have a way to automate our onboarding plans where it's a simple click of the button and all I have to do is type in a name. That simple, rather than me building out a full onboarding program. Going to shout out Confluence there at Atlassian for that one. But it's a great way to lead into automation once you consider the scale and standardizing your processes. Awesome.
Let's talk about owning the stage.
Love this one.
This is a big one. This can look different for each of your roles, the format of your onboarding program, or really any enablement program that you're running at your companies. But we want everyone to own the stage when you execute. And maybe you're asking, what does that really mean? So owning the stage from my perspective is whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, make that experience as fun as possible. Make sure they're engaged, they're energetic, they're automatically going to retain more information if they're having fun. They're active listening. It benefits everyone if you really set the experience at a high level and have fun, whether that's at the beginning, coming back from a lunch break, or at the end of the day, have something planned for your new hires to go out. And just be able to network, meet people, develop relationships. So that's part one of owning the stage. The second part is blanking on the second part, but I think the second part is just making sure that whatever presenter is being in front of the classroom and teaching, that they know their stuff, they're able to handle objections and questions and be comfortable with that so that they are, new hires feel that they are learning from the absolute best person at the company and feel like they're the company's making investment in their progress as well versus just checking a box.
And to go along with that too, with what Nelson just said, and if they don't know the answer, someone that's not just going to spew out an answer and feel comfortable saying, I don't know, let me come back to that, or oh, this is something we didn't think about to add, going to make sure we bring that into the table next time. So, cool. So you've built your program, you've executed it. Can anyone give me a guess of what the last thing is? There you go. I know we had it on the slide, yeah. I was hoping they were paying attention, you know? So yes, measuring your program. So the first thing you're going to want to do is align to top-level strategic priorities. So for a lot of us here, that means your go-to-market strategy. Everything you are building out, is it aligning with what go-to-market is trying to achieve at the end of the financial year, right? So meeting with those stakeholders, making sure you're in those meetings as well. I was actually very surprised how open a lot of our top stakeholders were to having me in those talks and in those meetings because they want to ensure that the new hires are going to get what they need out of onboarding rather than them being there for 6 months and kind of just talking about Atlassian.
The great part about aligning to strategic priorities right now is we're at the beginning of the year for most companies. You've just come off an SKO or you're about to have one. This is a great chance to capture that content, capture the momentum that happened at kickoff, and make sure you're aligning that to your onboarding program as well. Yep. So the second thing is defining competencies. Can someone just raise their hand, shout out what they would define a competency as? Behaviors, sure.
Subject area.
Subject area. Skills, absolutely. I think that's all spot on. So competencies, we want to make sure that you're actually not just aligning to the strategic priorities of the company, but have something that you can measure as well. And that would be your competencies, whether it's a hard skill, like product knowledge, a soft skill, sales methodologies, being able to perform discovery properly within the first 30, 60, 90 days of your onboarding process. Define those competencies and define a way that you're able to measure them, whether it's through certifications like Atlassian is doing in Databricks, whether it's through knowledge checks and quizzes. Set your competencies at the enablement level, define what you need for onboarding, and then figure out a way to best measure that. There are multiple as well. It doesn't have to be just one format.
Yes, and the next part of it is define your measurements. There are two things you want to think about here, right? You want to think of the quantitative data. Time to first deal, time to first contact with the customer, whatever the role may be. What is something that you can measure just based on their role, based on the competencies, right? But then there's also the qualitative data. Making sure that you're doing milestone check-ins with your new hires is going to be very important so you understand, yes, I am enjoying this program. No, I am not enjoying this program. No, I don't need to know this, or I don't feel like I need to know this. Why? So you can go back and see if that is a consistent trend when it comes to onboarding. There was a great statistic, I think 2 years ago, that showed, I think it's like 60-ish% of retention in a company is based on the onboarding program. That's where it starts. So making sure you're pulling that feedback in so you can bring it back to the program is going to be very important.
Awesome, thanks Marco. So the last thing we want to talk about is how do you visualize progress? I mean visualize in a very literal way, whether that's through dashboards, through slides at the end of an onboarding program, at the middle of the year, at the end of the year, but you want to visualize the progress and also the successes that you're having within the program. And this is at the individual level and also at the overall program level. So at Databricks, we have this individual report card that gathers up different assessments, entry and exit exams, how they did with their pitch certification. And we provide that to the managers so they're able to understand where their new hire is at upon leaving the program, and they can then prescribe what the best next steps would be from a coaching perspective and also from the ongoing enablement team and effectiveness. And then, of course, at the program level, we want to make sure that we're showing how the program is doing, whether that's through NPS, that's through feedback scores. You want to make sure you're calling out great feedback as well that you get from the new hires, because your new hires, when they send a note to their manager, to their sales leader, to a VP and said, hey, this was an exceptional onboarding process, you want to make sure you capture that and evangelize that, because that is excellent feedback, but you also need the hard data as well. So whether that's through surveys, how the certifications are going, make sure that you're also presenting that. And we do slides at the end of our class, and so we collaborate or collect this feedback and share it out. But also we're working on different dashboards and tracking AE metrics as they progress 3 months, 6 months, a year through the company. So we're seeing how they're actually doing in the field after they leave the onboarding journey.
Yeah. And I'm a big sucker for a dashboard. I'm not going to lie to you. Colors, I'm very color oriented when it comes to writing down notes and sharing information. So for us at Atlassian, we do have a dashboard that show how many people are coming in what role. So should we be prioritizing one training over the other to make sure that we are giving the information they need, and it allows us to measure more effectively as well in what we're trying to do. But I think that's what we had, right, Nelson?
That is. So the next part was really, we have, let's say, about 10 minutes for questions. I know that the slide I.O., we can go ahead and put that back up on the screen now if that's appropriate. We want to hear what questions you have. Marco and I can take them and answer them. It looks like we have one already. If you have questions, go ahead and use the QR code, ask them, and we'll try to answer them until time.
Yep. So the first one, what strategies can be used to implement an agile framework from a sales enablement perspective? Love the word agile. Again, going to shout out Atlassian there. I know someone mentioned it a little bit earlier of utilizing tools, right? So that is easily one way you can focus on an agile framework of working, because for us at Atlassian, I'll be 100% honest, we are not doing a restructure, but we're starting with competencies again. We're kind of throwing things back, because that alone, building that foundation of the competencies, is going to allow us to build out that agile framework. If you don't have a foundation, it gets a little crummy, then you start getting feedback of how it's not working, things are changing, and then that's just gonna throw you completely off, and then you have to go back to start, which is not ideal as your organization is growing. So that would be my point of view there. Utilize systems and tools that, that you can automate, and then build out your competencies for a great foundation.
Love that, great answer. I'll take the next question. So this is, tell us more about how you're measuring and customizing onboarding based on that intake exam. So at Databricks, right when the new hire starts, on their first day, they get assigned an intake exam. This is not meant to be an extremely challenging test. We're not expecting them to fail, but we do want to have an accurate measurement of where they're at today. So within that intake exam, there are questions about the data space, key personas, trying to understand what their sales methodology experience is, whether that's MedPick, something external. We also try to sprinkle in questions about, even though we haven't taught them yet, but we do teach a little bit, or assess where they're at in terms of our sales methodologies. And so there's a threshold to meet for that intake exam. If they do not meet that threshold, we actually prescribe we don't call it this externally, but we say it's a remedial course. It's basically just a little bit more foundational, probably a level 0 type of topics. And we ask them to take that first before they go through the pre-work, which we would call level 1.
Awesome. I saw one got upvoted here. I'll take this one. How do you partner with frontline managers and reps to ensure the lessons from onboarding are being actioned and you're getting feedback on gaps? This is actually something that I feel we've started to do at Atlassian, where we thought that frontline managers very much wanted us to take everything on and then basically give the new hires to the managers. They know everything, right? Not how things work. We quickly learned. So the way that we partner with them is they are actually in charge of the certification program. Because if we're the ones grading it and coaching on it, but we're not working with them day to day, their managers are. So their managers are actually the ones that should be coaching up on the cloud certification. They grade it and they have to report it back to us to make sure it happens. The way that we do that is we have a program tracker, currently very manual in Google Sheets, but something that works, where we can actually show the managers they've attended this training, they didn't attend this training, they got a certain score on a Kahoot quiz that we utilize, and it allows the manager to say, hey, is something going on, like you didn't do so well on this one, or was the material not good enough, that kind of thing there. So being open with the frontline managers is the biggest part of partnering with them. And then of course the stakeholder buy-in. That's gonna be important. But if you can go to a stakeholder and explain why it's important that you are meeting and getting feedback from those frontline managers, most of them should understand.
And just to add on to that, Marco, so we actually had our SKO last week for the entire company, our sales kickoff, and I joined Databricks last March. I'm newer than 45% of the company, so we have a lot of new sales managers that have joined as well, and so they're figuring it out alongside their new hires. So what we did last week at SKO was actually have a sales leader session at the very beginning on the front end of the event and taught them what's coming out this year. Of course, we're aligning them to strategic priorities. We also told them what's happening in onboarding, so they're aware of what their new hire is going through. And we provide that report card at the very end so they understand how they tracked against those priorities, and then prescribe different coaching opportunities for them as well. So we've just kind of started to coach our managers on what we're doing in a very formal way. Everyone has the same message, and then hopefully throughout the rest of this year we're able to prescribe some really great one-on-one coaching opportunities for the manager. But the managers are learning this as well, and so there's a separate enablement team more on the ongoing side also working with our managers to make sure they are equipped to be able to coach properly.
How do you balance different types of learning modalities? Self-paced, peer-to-peer, group, experimental. So being remote first, that is something that we have to think about at all times. So on the onboarding plans, we break it up into 3 sections based on lap. One has the live sessions listed out. This is what you will be attending during this lap. This is the self-paced work. And what we're currently working on right now with our role readiness managers, it kind of ties into another question that I saw come in here. Working with our role readiness managers saying, okay, this is critical to know within your 30 days. This is a nice to know by your 90th day. So they know exactly what's gonna help them be successful in their first 30 days. And then meetings and shadowing. We define for them based on the lap they're on, the people they should be going to, the conversations that they should be having, and questions to potentially ask them, just so they're not scheduling meetings on their own and saying, so my name is XYZ and I just started and I came from here, and then 30 minutes is gone and it was just a meet and greet when it came down to it. We're giving them, we're basically telling them and showing them what they need to do rather than just expecting them to already know.
I'll add on to that and say that I think it's really intuitive that we all recognize that different individuals learn in a slightly different way. They might learn really well from lecture and being in person. Some are totally fine with Zoom and just having slides and taking notes on the side. Others do want that one-on-one coaching opportunity. And if you've taken an adult learning class before, you probably have also recognized that in a little bit more detail as well with some more academic theory. But it's how we see this played out is that we intentionally craft our learning, our onboarding experience starting with pre-work so everyone gets on the same page, covering through one-on-one topics in a self-paced way. And then we intentionally build on that. We pull through the content into the boot camp. So we're not just teaching it once, we're teaching it a second time, but in a slightly different way. Rather than just lectures when they're in person, we're actually having them get hands-on, have discussions, and do different types of activities together as well.
You mentioned dashboards. I'm all about visuals too. Is this custom built or do you have a program you use? Currently at Atlassian, we are a little scrappy with our visuals, as I like to call it, where we utilize Google Sheets. I do come from a background of, like, not joking, I used to compete in Excel competitions when I was in high school, so I know Excel very well. So I'm lucky in that sense that I'm able to do that. But I do know that we currently have someone on our analytics team where they are going to be focused on enablement to help us build out those dashboards so they're not so manual on that side.
I'll take the question third from the top. So what type of experience are you seeing in your new hires, early career or later career? At Databricks, we were very much hiring, I think, kind of mid to later career AEs because we want them to go and have a hot start within some of our accounts that we're really trying to break into. And so our early career sellers start more in the business development, BDR, SDR phase, and then there's usually a quick promotion track to get them up to an account executive within the commercial business. But I think for our enterprise account executives, we see them as later career. And so what's really interesting about this is they know how to sell. They've been doing this for their entire career most likely. And so we're not teaching them how to sell. We're teaching them about our product, the space that we play in within the data and AI world, and our unique sales methodology so that they can continue what they do best, but just in the Databricks way. So we're not necessarily teaching them the basics. We actually have a separate SDR program that a different individual on my team runs. But when we're talking about our commercial, our enterprise sellers, we recognize they're experts at what they do. Let's just make sure they can be experts in Databricks.
Cool. The next one, as for measurement, are you tracking sales results or sales impact post-onboarding? If so, how? Are you also tracking talent development progression? This is something we're very early in at Atlassian. I'll be 100% honest, where kind of how we were talking about that quantitative data of time to first deal, time to first contact, post-onboarding, because at Atlassian, sometimes we're backfilling positions where they're getting their accounts day 2. And then there are people that are getting their accounts month 3. So because of that, we do focus more on the feedback aspect for managers, making sure that that's working, the cloud certification. So for us right now, it's just making sure that new hires are prepared to take on these conversations wherever they are in their career at Atlassian.
Love that. And then on the Databricks side, we are also tracking pipe generation within their first 6 months, their time to their first deal. It's a little bit difficult to prove a correlation or causation, but we do also want to just track and see what the status is so we know where we might need to go in and tweak our program, maybe double down on something if we do see a gap somewhere. But we are tracking the actual Salesforce data as well.
I'm going to take the do you offer enablement by role type. We are very lucky at Atlassian that we do. So we call our AEs enterprise advocates. So we have a readiness manager for that role right there. Loyalty advocates, which are renewal specialists. We actually have 2 for that one. And then our SDRs, which are EDRs at Atlassian, they have their own as well. So it's very beneficial, and I very much say it has saved a lot of our lives on enablement, because I can't be a subject matter expert in everything. In the EA role, the LA role, the EDR role, I can be a subject matter expert on the general information and kind of have an idea of what they need to know. But having that role, that role-specific readiness manager, they can really dial in and work on those best practices, that coaching for that role. So very much a big proponent of offering enablement by role type.
So I think we have time for one more question. I'll take this question. So what strategies do you have for scalability when you have a high volume of new hires versus are on a hiring freeze, which might be a lot of us in the room today? It's challenging to know what normal is. So I think this depends on the company and just what your current hiring track looks like. 10 people a quarter might be a lot. It might be 50 people a quarter. That was certainly us last year. So when we have a high volume of new hires that are coming into the program, it goes back to how you build your program. It has to be simple. You have to be able to scale it. So that looks like making sure you have a great database of presenters that are able to come in when you need them. And then when you're on a hiring freeze, I don't see this as a downside for the onboarding program. I think it's a little bit different at the top level of the company, but for a hiring freeze, that actually provides us the time to be able to inspect our program, see where the gaps are, and how can we adjust for the current market conditions and make sure our sellers are able to come out. And if the market has changed, which it certainly has for the technology world, we're able to help them adapt on what do we need them to prioritize when they're going out and talking to customers versus just the adage of the product sells itself. That isn't happening today. And so how do we make sure they're equipped during this period of uncertainty?
And honestly, finishing perfectly, it's challenging not to know what normal is. Onboarding's not normal. It's always going to change.
It is.
So being ready to adapt is going to be very important. Cool.
All right, I
That's
think
our time.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate y'all.